What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and many tickers out there. Talk about a very interesting pattern that has been developing on SPY that could play out for tomorrow, and talk about what I predict to happen to the markets based off the data and based off the technicals we're seeing so far. But before I break anything down with all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in just 2 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at SPY, we had a very interesting day. This thing basically started off kind of weak, gapping down just a little bit before getting a very nice, monstrous pump to start us off. We actually had this drop in the morning, which was a really nice liquidity grab before the real move came. This was like a fake drop in the morning before we got this nice pop after we saw the consumer inflationary expectations data report. Then after that, the market was kind of like range bound between the 50 and 200 EMAs before getting one last pop at the very end to our target of 448. And I believe there's more upside eventually coming. But there's one thing I have to say about it that could be a little bit different from what some people are thinking. Now, before I talk about the technicals, let me just say a couple of things about the data and the earnings. So for tomorrow, okay, we have retail sales coming out in the morning. We have imports and exports data 1 hour before the market opens, and lots of this data coming out month over month and year over year. So all of this data is going to cause the market to shift a bit. In my opinion, I think it may cause the market to gap down just a little bit. The market may start off a little bit slow because SPY did this for the last 2 trading days, but then after that, the market had a tendency of pumping. And I think that's what's going to happen again as Wall Street tries to get those deals to start buying more calls to push the market a little bit higher before more data comes out. We may start off a little bit weak with this data, but later on at about 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, we have Cash Kari from the Fed speaking. And this guy has a tendency of being very dovish, pumping the markets. And there's a good chance he may say something about how the Fed is going to pause soon. Inflationary data is looking good. He may say things like that. He has a tendency of saying that historically. So I think there's a good chance he may pump the markets later on. So I think the market may do what it did today, basically starting off kind of weak. Same thing happened on Friday, and then we get a very nice pump as time goes on. And I think the technicals still look more bullish. Now, to add on to this, let me just mention that looking at some earnings, we have a couple of others coming out tomorrow morning, like the Home Depot, not to mention ONON and just a few others. Then we also have like H&R Block and a few others after the market closes. For Wednesday, we have Target reporting its earnings alongside TJ Maxx, and then for Thursday, we have Walmart, Dole, Ross, and just a couple of others. So we're going to be watching these very carefully. It's going to be very interesting. So now when it comes to the market, let's talk about what these charts are suggesting. So on SPY, this thing had this bullish falling wedge that was developing, got a really nice bounce off our confluence of support, which is exactly what I called out earlier, right? We had this support right here, which was previous resistance from the breakout area. So right around here, we broke out from 444. Now it was acting as the support. We also respected this blue trend line. I called all of this out earlier. And now we actually closed very close to this wedge. I mean, I wouldn't count this as a confirmation of a breakout because we've broken out of it and came back many times. So it's not confirmed yet until we see what happens tomorrow. But here's what I think is going to happen. So looking at this in a more like specific lens, I think it's very probable SPY could do something like this, where it basically cools off a little bit. We might actually gap down after getting such a monstrous pump at the very end. So it could gap down back into this like area right about here for Tuesday, come back into like the very high 446s, for example, gap down a bit, trade a little sideways, then get a nice pump one more time as the time goes on, especially when Cash Kari speaks. I wouldn't be surprised if we see this thing launch very close to 450 very soon. That is a real possibility. Something like this could play out. Starting very weak, not very weak, just a little bit weak, just to start us off like a gap down, a small little drop before we get one more pump. I find that very probable, and that would help complete this inverse head and shoulders pattern, right? So you can see it right here. In case you guys missed it, there's an inverse head and shoulders right here. You could see we had this very nice high that was established during the pump to about 452 or so. We also have this imbalance right over here in the net flow. As we got this big drop, we formed the left shoulder right about here. We have a head down here, which is the bottom, which is where our support was at that 444 zone. And then we have the right shoulder that formed as we dropped this morning, followed by a nice bounce, hitting once again our neckline. Good good bounces could come from here. So I'm going to be looking for a back test of this wedge. Could come back down to the very high 446s in the morning, maybe gap down a little bit, get a small drop, just a very quick drop, then a nice bounce and another push up is what I'm anticipating for the next like day and a half. Because on Wednesday we have the FOMC minutes. I would say that it's very probable that the market's going to hold up approaching it, and then we're going to see what the reaction is after the data comes out. And I'm not 100% sure how it's going to look. We have to be very careful on Wednesday. I will talk more about that tomorrow though, because we're just, we have some time until Wednesday. So for tomorrow specifically, I still think there's going to be more upside. I think technicals look quite good for many stocks. I'm going to break these down in more details. So for SPY in particular, you're going to be watching this 4-hour time frame very carefully as we just got a bullish cross on the PPO, and we're going to be testing our 50 EMA. If we break this and hold above this, this thing is going to the 450s most likely. If we get above the 448.66 resistance, we're very close to it. I think tomorrow we might gap down, maybe retest 447, 446.9 around there. Just a very tiny gap down before this thing starts pushing once again to retest the 50 EMA and potentially break it and make our way up to about 450 plus. To complete the inverse head and shoulders, we technically should be going up to like 451 to 452 around there. I think that's very probable as well, but first we have to get above our 50 EMA and 450, and I do believe the market's going to do that eventually. I am still leaning more bullish on SPY. Now, the bearish case, okay, just hypothetically, if something bad happens in the news, we're going to come all the way down to like 446. If that fails us, then I wouldn't rule out like 445, 444.61. They are technically possible, but I'm just not leaning in that direction as we have so many different confluences that are bullish, right? So many different things are suggesting that bullish outcomes are more probable. So I'm leaning more bullish. I think it's more likely that we kind of like gap down, slow down in the morning. They get a nice pop and a push up in the afternoon. It's just like today. We did this on Friday. We did this on Monday. It may continue for tomorrow. With the IWM, I believe it's going to do something similar, gap down, retest like 190 or so, maybe a little bit lower, then try to bounce, make its way up to about 191.34, leaning more bullish on this as well, just like SPY, and I think that's more probable. For Tesla, this looks very, very nice. I love this setup. It looks very, very good. So for Tesla, it has a very special looking falling wedge. So let me just show you what this looks like. This was looking really nice for Tesla. And if anything, we came just at the bottom of it, right? So I mapped out two possibilities. Either we like continue dropping if we get more bad news and this thing bounces. This is still technically a possibility, this red line right here, but I'm not leaning in that direction. The second possibility is we come down to fill our gap around like this area, then we get a nice bounce and Tesla just starts pushing up from here. We basically come down to like 235 or so, then we just bounce. And this yellow line looks more probable. I think Tesla's going to try to pump very nicely. And I just want to mention that there's a very sloppy looking inverse head and shoulders. Sometimes we get these that formed on Tesla as well. This is like a smaller one compared to that of SPY and Aapl and etc. This looks more bullish to me. We also formed a potential wedge right here. In my opinion, Tesla could kind of like start off slow, but it has a tendency of pumping intraday as the like hours pass by. So I think it's going to try to fill this gap for 242.5 around that area, 242 or so, and maybe break into 242s. And then if that breaks, 245 is then on the table for the test of the upper area of the falling wedge. So I think 242 is going to come for Tesla by tomorrow. If it breaks, I could see 245 as another possibility. I'm leaning more bullish on Tesla based off the bullish divergences, based off the balance we got, based off all these different factors. We have a triple bullish divergence on Tesla starting to show some life. I think this thing wants to bounce. Tesla spent most of the day pumping, believe it or not. When you actually zoom out, even though it closed kind of red, here's the thing. When you zoom out, this is what it looked like. It gapped down really hard because of some bad news about the price cuts. It pumped, came down a little bit and just continued to hold up. And we saw some nice consolidation. So it looks good. It looks really good. We have a bullish divergence right here as well on the 5-minute time frame. It looks quite nice. May gap down, start a little weak for the day tomorrow before getting another bounce. And I'm going to be watching for 242 very, very soon. If that breaks, 245 is on the table. For Aapl, looks bullish to me. Now, we do have this like bullish looking structure developing on it. It could actually start a little slow around 179, then start pushing for 180 plus. 181.5 is a possibility too, because when you look at this, there's a clear accumulation right over here. Could be like a cup and handle that's forming. We have a nice inverse head and shoulder structure. Our target's around almost 181. We're getting closer to it. That happens to be very close to our 30 minutes 200 EMA. I think this is going to be tested. 180 plus should come on Aapl, helping the market pump more. It looks more bullish in my opinion. The QQQ looks more bullish, nice inverse head and shoulders. It's kind of slanted. We also had a very, very nice wedge that formed. So it might gap down. It may be a little bit weaker than like other stocks. It may gap down a little bit, retest 368 in the morning, then get a bounce off that, retest 370, then break it and go up to either 372 or 374 by tomorrow. That's what I predict is going to happen. Start off weak, bounce, and then just keep going from there. I think Nvidia may do something similar. I think Nvidia could come down, gap down to maybe like 430 or so, then get a bounce and try to continue pushing. If it continues to break out, we're going to be watching this shop area around this 450 area as our target. So I'm going to be watching maybe like a retest of like 430 in the pre-market, then a bounce and a push to about 450 very soon on Nvidia. Looks more bullish to me. And if you look at this area right here where we saw lots of sideways price action, this is an area that's going to act as a magnet. This entire area between 445 to about 456, I think it's going to take us very close to where our important support and resistance happen to be. And it's going to bring this thing back up there very close to 450. That's my target for now. And I think it could even go to like 456 or so. But first, it may gap down tomorrow, retest 430, bounce off that, and go all the way up to about 450. I'm leaning more in that direction. For Netflix, something very similar may end up playing out. Now, we have this potential ascending wedge like pattern developing on it. May gap down to 426, bounce off that, and then break above this level right here around this 432 area. And I think that's very probable for Netflix. Same thing with the NASDAQ and SPX. Just wanted to mention that they're looking more bullish. SPX and NASDAQ are both trying to push up. We're going to be watching this thing either gap down, maybe retest the 50 EMA, then bounce, and then push up after forming this bullish divergence back to this high right here. 14,000 could be a target or very close to the 200 EMA on the 30 minutes time frame. So there's more upside for the NASDAQ in my opinion, more upside for SPX as well. Our 200 happens to be around 4,500. I think we're going to hit that before Friday. We could even get closer to where this like area is right here for the inverse head and shoulders completion. It looks more bullish. SPX looks more bullish. If you look at the VIX, lo and behold, what I was calling out yesterday was this unfilled gap down here. This gap is way down here with this head and shoulders like structure. Remember, we called this out on the VIX. The left shoulder, the head, and then the right shoulder right here. Break down, and this thing could come down to like 13.7. Why? Because the market may pump, causing the VIX to drop more. It looks more bullish for the stock market, bearish for the VIX and the SQQQ. That looks more probable in my opinion. For the Dixie or the dollar index, whatever you want to call it, this thing pumped a little bit, then it came down after some news involving India. Then it ended up coming right back up, bouncing off the 50. So I'm thinking that the dollar may subside a little bit. We could be seeing like a head and shoulders like pattern here that's kind of slanted. It may come down to about 103 to retest, and maybe it breaks or not, but it's not really slowing the market down that hard. Maybe it starts off a little high, then it ends up like dropping as time goes on. Coinbase should bounce. I'm going to be watching 84 to be retested. If it gets above the 50 EMA around 82, I think there's a good chance it's going to try to bounce. So I'm going to be watching 84 to potentially be tested. For Google, it looks more bullish to me. It may gap down. It's about 130.9, a little bit higher than that possibly, then bounce and make its way up to about the 132s. I think this is going to be a target on Google. It could be forming a cup and handle as well. It looks more bullish overall, maybe a gap down than a pump. The 10-year Treasury yield, it's holding up for the time being, but we have a bearish cross in the 30-minute PPO. And on the 4-hour time frame, we're kind of flat right now. It does have a bearish divergence. If this thing starts dropping, the 10-year Treasury yield, this could be bullish for stocks, and it's starting to give us some signals of that right now. So we could see this thing come down to the 20 EMA. If it breaks below the 20, 41.5, right, this thing is going to come all the way down to 41.13. Once again, bullish for stocks. We also have this gap down here just about there. That could be another bullish signal. For Amazon stock, I'm going to be watching this very carefully. I would say that we have a nice accumulation right here that could be developing on it. And it could actually, push this thing even higher to like 143. I'm going to be looking for a gap down or retest of like 139. The 139 is somewhere around there, 139.39 to 139.9. A bounce off that, then a push up to about at least 141 again. It could even break above that to 142 plus. Then I wouldn't rule out the other level that's above that. And then for Meta, like I said before, looked bullish to me. We had a nice bullish divergence that developed on it. It's testing resistance at the 200 EMA, but on the 4-hour time frame, I think that there's a good chance it's going to get a rejection just to start off in the morning, come down to like 305, 306. Maybe a little bit lower, 303 could be retested technically. Then a bounce off that, and it's going to push up for about 308 again if it breaks. Look at this imbalance at about 312 or so in the 312s. It's going to push up for 312 plus, make its way up to about 316. I think it looks more bullish than bearish, and I think that it may gap down and push, or just push from here. Looks more bullish overall. So that's what I'm seeing for the markets, guys. I hope this video was helpful, so please take care, everyone. Remain calm, cool, and collected when analyzing the charts. Let the chart tell you what to do. And don't forget that some of the most important time frames are not just the smaller ones, but also the larger ones. Watch the 4 hour, the 30 minutes specifically, and then the 5 minute. They're all really, really good ones that I look at specifically. Watch the EMAs, do what you have to do, and please take care of yourselves. Market to the moon as the long term is still very bright. Thank you, and peace out.